podcast that we do weekly on Spotify and iTunes. And just like every week, we're back this week with what happened last week at Barca. So without further ado, welcome, Tom.
Thank you, Dev. Yeah, it's been a big week for Barca. I think one of the biggest weeks for Barca. Obviously, talking about the Champions League clash, which we lost, but then it doesn't really matter that we lost it. It's more about the lessons that we learned. So I think that is where we'll start today, guys. But there's a lot more topics to talk about. There's some things on Flick and his comments because that's always going to be in the spotlight as well. Uh, we have a game today, actually, so we'll see you on the live stream in a couple of hours after this. But it's fine; you can never get enough of live streams, I guess. And then we'll talk about Madrid a bit because why not? I mean, we do talk about Barca most of the time, but Madrid are a very important part of what makes Barca Barca in a way, and what makes this competition so beautiful for Barcelona, but also so painful for Barcelona. So there's a lot to actually go through, Dev. And
Also,
hopefully you
Inter,
guys.
Inter is coming up.
Inter is
Lots of
coming
people
up.
have wanted to know about Inter and how we are, how we will set up against them. So, yeah, bring on the question, guys, and we will obviously answer them and go through the process. But first, let's start with the learning from Dortmund.
Exactly. I think that is the most important thing, Dev. I mean, we did lose, and losses will happen. And many people have said in the past, or just this week after the game, okay, this is good because we will get that loss out of that system. I think that is one way to look at it, definitely is. And then the other way to look at it is obviously, okay, what can we learn from Dortmund? Because obviously, Dortmund have made some of our flaws quite apparent. They made our fatigue quite apparent, and they made maybe they gave Inter some ideas. Okay, this is how you actually can hurt this Barcelona side because this Barca are incredible. They're very good at what they do. They have been steamrolling most teams this season, and they are rightfully what they are in the top four of the Champions League, top of La Liga, Copa del Rey final. All of that is there, and it has been a reward for Barca and Flick's hard work. However, that doesn't mean that this team is perfect. It doesn't mean that this team is flawless and that this team is unbeatable, right? So I think it's very important to look at this Borussia Dortmund game and say, okay, this is where we faltered. This is what we did do well, and this is what we have to improve. So with that being said, Dev, what do you see as the biggest thing that Dortmund have exposed in this game, and is there a way around it? Is there a way to fix it, and how do we do that? Can we give Flex some ideas from that perspective, for our perspective at least?
I think different coaches are different, but they played through us. I mean, it wasn't the standard long ball over the top and then trying to force the initiative. I think Dortmund had a game plan. We were obviously tired. And I think we also took it a little bit, probably we were a bit confident or overconfident or whichever way you want to go with it. The 4-0 scoreline obviously gave us that cushion that we think, because if you think about the first half, we just weren't there at all. And that is very rare for a Barca side. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
It has happened in the league. It has happened that the first 15, 20 minutes we are struggling or, and that happens often with us. But the whole half, 45 minutes, we just not at the races. That's rare from this team, but we got to see that. So probably there was a bit of complacency. Probably there was a bit of absolutely there was tiredness because the schedule is murderous and has been for this team. They're young. Our depth is also not the high, the deepest or what have you. So it was, I think, a bit of both. But I think the way Dortmund used Girassi, I think the way they used Pascal Gross, I think the way they played through the midfield with the second man runs, I think, yes, there is a blueprint that you would say that some other teams or coaches might want to use. Now, in defense, people would say that, that goals happen because of individual mistakes and, lack of concentration, but every goal happens because of an individual mistake or lack of concentration. It's what causes that. And I think Dortmund did cause Barca some problems that night because we just couldn't impose our game. Now, there are mistakes, no questions on that. But if a coach as wily as Inzaghi wants to pick up on it, he has enough to pick up on. He's already a world-class coach. Inter is a good team. They have faced Barca many times before in the previous versions of the Champions League. So they know how we play. Obviously, this is a new team, different coach, what have you. But for somebody like Inzaghi, who is also planning for the treble, if not the quadruple, there's enough to pick up on, and they know for a fact that this is a tired team for sure.
Hmm. Hmm. Yes, many of those points I do really do agree, and the things that Dortmund did, Inter can replicate, and I think they can replicate it at a higher level. That's the biggest concern for Barca because okay, yes, these youngsters have now seen that there are teams out there who can do this to them. There are teams who will overwhelm them and teams who will suffocate them. Now, Dortmund, as good as they have been in games against us, they are not really the this titan of European football at the moment, right? Have to admit that. With all the credits to Niko Kovac for actually steadying the ship and making them quite as
Appear
competitive
better.
against Barca. Yeah, exactly. They're still not there yet, right? They're not a team that can do the things that Barca want to do. As well, because Barca want to be the top of the pile. Barca want to win everything, and Dortmund, as much as they may have similar aspirations, they're not quite there in quality. Now, playing through Barca is a very interesting aspect because Barca's press was lacking. It was also lacking because of fatigue, but it was also outplayed. That's the good thing to note because what Dortmund do is they play with a three at the back kind of system, and they were very dynamic and flexible in midfield, lots of rotations. What Barca want to do with their press is they want to trap you outside or lure you inside to collapse. And Dortmund made that impossible with three players in the back and then circulations and Girassi, as you pointed out. So Inter can do the same thing because Inter can also play with a three at the back. Inter have someone like Turam, for example, who you can ping the long passes to and he will lay them off nicely. So they can play through Barca in a very similar manner to Dortmund, only with I would say still more quality than what Dortmund have. So I think that is in many ways a blueprint they will want to adopt with three players at the back, and this is something that Flick has to look at because how does Barca adjust their press to press the three-man back line because they don't press with three people, right? They press with two people, and then they have backup from the midfield and Lewandowski dropping deeper. But that makes the press also quite narrow. So what that does is it opens up the half space progression for the opposition if they can play through it or over it, whichever case they do. So I think that for me would be the biggest thing. How do we press Inter successfully, knowing that they will do very similar thing to Dortmund? Because Dortmund didn't have Schlotterbeck, and yet
They
they
still
still
managed it.
managed. Exactly, they still managed it, and they don't have a highly technical ball playing goalkeeper in Kobel either. He's not really that guy to unlock the whole team just by through his passing. So I think Inter it will be a step up in almost every way. They're not unbeatable, obviously. They I'm not sure they will. I think they would crack under Barca pressure, but I think I'm more concerned of what we can do defensively to the center because that is where the danger lies. Obviously, I think that kind of sums this up a
A
bit. I
question,
mean, we'll do. Yeah.
from tactical mostly, but let's say it's a 3-5-2.
Hmm.
Probably Inter will go with something like that, right?
Hmm.
Against our classic 4-3-3 kind of. Probably
Yeah.
you're going with a 4-3-3.
Let's say that. Yeah.
Let's say we go with that, and the best choice of our midfield is probably Pedri, Frankie, and
Yeah. Depends. Maybe Olmo. Maybe. Yeah. I mean,
maybe
it's.
Olmo, maybe it's Furman. It's a tough one. Which one
Mhm.
to go with? But let's assume Pedri and Frankie are there. But then you have a five-man midfield with Çalhanoğlu. There are so many players, and they're the good ones, right? They're a really solid defense and a really solid industrious midfield. Let's just put it that way. They're
Mhm.
hardworking, they're industrious. They can play the technical game. They can do the technical fouls. They can do all of that.
Yeah.
Um, how do you see that pairing match up?
It will be all about how can we create. But bars are all about creating space. So the way Inter usually generally build up, okay, three at the back, two wing backs sort of, and then they drop a double pivot, and they also drop one of the strikers. Usually Lautaro can drop, and they do create lots of overloads in that middle of the pitch, and then Lautaro can be just a tool to drag players out of position. And what they want to do is they want to have isolation in the front. So they want their wingers to be one versus one, and they want Turam to be one versus one. So how does Barca actually play in that midfield? Well, they're outnumbered. Well, the thing is, we have Pedri and Frankie. You will have to play through them. You have to play through them and we have to bank on Pedri and Flick being able to wiggle out of press. That's one thing. The other thing is if Inter do crowd the midfield, that would technically or theoretically at least put Lamine and Rafinha into a less crowded possession, right? Because you can't have players all over you can't overload every zone of the pitch. If you overload the midfield, in theory, that means the wings will be a bit more free. And we are no strangers of going direct and long and skipping the midfield, going direct to Lamine, directly to Rafinha's run, or even into Lewandowski for a hold up play and then a quick link up or quick layoff into the space. So I think that is a viable option to go for. It's not ideal because you're not playing through your best players. Obviously, you're skipping Pedri, you're skipping De Jong. That is a valid concern. But if Inter don't allow access to Frankie or Pedri, and you don't want to risk them receiving under pressure, I'm certain the Flick will not be afraid of going directly and going long if the opportunity is there. Because still, one on one, or Rafinha running the space, or Lamine being one on one, I think I still favor our chances in that scenario. And I think that both of those players can do damage to Inter in those scenarios. And I think that will be the approach if Inter don't allow central midfield progression. That's how I would see it. Definitely.
Well, for those who have the question around how the matchup would be, I think that's one favorable explanation. But obviously, we'll get to know more when the game happens, and also it will
Yeah.
depend so much on who plays. We just heard that Thuram is injured. Nobody's
Oh, is he? Oh, I've no
Yeah,
idea. Okay. All
apparently
right.
he
That's
has
big.
an injury. Nobody's saying they're saying that he will miss the match against Bologna, but they haven't
Hmm.
said that he will miss the match in the Champions League. So we don't know
Right.
whether he's staying or not. But if a Thuram isn't there, that's a different storyline. That's a different situation.
Oh, absolutely.
Um, so there are many permutations. The second thing that I have, Dom, and before we move to the other topic, is we obviously like Dortmund are at home first and then away at the end. Now, this can be somewhat of a disadvantage in a Champions League, Tony. But that said, what would be the strategy that Flick should keep in mind given this home first, away next
Hmm.
situation, given also the fixture that we have, because we face Inter and Real Madrid twice
Yeah.
in less
Yeah.
than 15 days. So there are
Yeah.
four games in less than 15 days with two seriously difficult opponents with the same squad, with Valladolid in between somewhere stuck, I think.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
so that's there. And tonight we have Celta.
Yeah, it's there were some reports that the Valladolid game might be moved, or Barca trying to get it
Yes,
moved.
it has been moved by one day. They have moved from, I
Mhm.
think,
Oh, they
fourth to
have.
third. Yeah, yeah, they have moved it by
Hmm.
one day.
Hmm.
But is that enough? I don't know.
Don't know. Yeah, yeah. Flick has said a lot of things on the schedule being not ideal for Barca, and especially the La Liga is not really doing
Helping.
us any favors. Yeah, not helping us, and they should be helping their teams in Europe, especially when Barca are the only Spanish representative in the Champions League in Europe. So it would be very important for the league to actually try and make it easier for Barca, but they've not been as cooperative as we would want them to be. Now, technically, I think yeah, the home game is where we do our the most damage, right? We've seen that against Dortmund, we've created a big enough cushion at home to be able to afford a much shakier game away from home. And I think the blueprint will stay the same. At home, we just cannot afford to be lackluster. We cannot afford to be a team that's not dominating, or a team that's not creating that cushion, because we'll need to do that. Away games, second leg in the Champions League, it's not never favorable. Teams would rather have the second leg at home than away from home, right? It's always going to be like that, and the Barca are the same. So I think the approach will be largely the same. Now, it all depends on the games around those main games. I think for Madrid, obviously there won't be rotations. For Inter, there won't be rotations. And in theory, if we beat Madrid in the league, that gives you even a bigger cushion for maybe dropping the points, or maybe, yes, exactly, maybe even sealing the title right there and there. We'll see how we get there, and how many points we get there to that game. But in theory, being Madrid, getting a 3 point difference from that one game could mean that we can afford dropping points elsewhere, or even just rotating elsewhere a bit more. So I think Flick, from that perspective, he won't take any chances. Even
No, I
if
don't
we
think they'll
have a
take chances at all. It's just how do you
Mhm.
like? How you said
Yeah,
that.
I mean,
It's going to
you
be
don't.
crazy. Absolutely.
You don't, and I tweeted this the other day, but I said, okay, this schedule is absolutely unrelenting. It's crazy. Players are tired. We are fatigued. We are fatigued as fans as well because there's so many games. But this is the schedule of the champions because not everyone will go through this because not everyone can be champions, right? And this is the price of success
This is
because
the
you
problem whenever you are still in a treble this late in the season.
exactly, exactly.
This is the problem. Now, had they dropped out of Copa del Rey or some one of them, at least
I
you
know.
could have got some rest. But now they're in everything, so
Yeah,
it's just
that
insane.
that's the price of success because you if you want to compete for everything, if you want to win everything, you have to expect that you'll play a lot of games and that you'll be in these relentless fixtures with tough opponents week in week out. But that's what champions are made of because if we can't go through this, if we can't really sustain this and show our quality despite these congested schedules, then we're not fit to be there, right? Because okay, we might have quality here and there, but if we can't play through the toughest times, maybe we're not ready for that. But so I think from that perspective, this is it. This is the test. Are you fit for this to be a champion across all the competitions,
Yeah,
or are
I
you
buy
not?
that. I buy that. I mean, you
So,
can't complain when you are in this situation
yeah,
because it's hard, no questions on that, and
yeah,
it's difficult. But that's why winning a treble is so hard. You only have
yeah,
10 teams have done it in the history, so
yep, yep,
you can't do it every time, and that's the test that we'll be facing this team and Hansi. But my
yeah,
point is, and I see this in other places. Before we move to
yeah.
the game against Celta, let's take this comment. I heard some Barca fans and YouTubers saying that Barca only beat into one or two goals the first game. So I wouldn't say that's a very nice approach. I may be wrong, but first of all, you can't control games like that.
Yeah.
And if you get the initiative, you take it. You take it
Hmm.
because you finish that day in the best possible manner that you can, and then you deal with the rest when it comes. You don't plan for the second half and then say, okay, no, let me be. If I score too many goals, I won't be focused, so let me score less. That I don't think that's a game state that any team can go with. Hopefully, Flick also doesn't go with something like that. But that said, though, on the question that I wanted was, let's assume if we lose against Madrid, the league,
Okay.
right? Is it curtains or do we still have breathing space?
I mean, we still have a couple of games until that clash in La Liga, right? How many games do we have in between
I think
now and Real Madrid Clasico, La Liga
I
Clasico?
think one Valladolid, if I'm not
Only
mistaken.
one. Only
I
one.
think
Okay.
I'll check.
All
I'll
right.
check the schedule. Barca schedule. Let me Google that.
Yeah. 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 You check. So it depends on that. I think we have to. We simply have to win every game leading up to the Clasico, because
So we have
then if
Mallorca, and
no, but
then we have on the
Celta,
20th.
Mallorca.
So we have
Yeah.
Mallorca, then we have
Yeah.
Real Madrid for the Copa, then we have
Okay. Yeah.
Inter. So 23rd is Mallorca, 27th is Real Madrid Copa, 1st May is Inter, 4th
Right.
May is Valladolid, and
Mhm.
7th May is Inter again, and then 12th May is Barcelona Madrid in the league. Then
Mhm.
you have 14th May, which is Espanyol, which
Yeah.
is like insane, and 18th May,
It
which
is.
is Villarreal. It's such
I know.
it's,
It is.
it's
It's
insane.
absolutely insane.
It's
And that, yeah,
absolutely insane.
there's no denying that the schedule is ridiculous, and if there are ways to lessen that burden on the players, I think the football federation, the whole federation, should actually look into it and say, okay, how do we make that happen for the players? Obviously, they want more games because they want more money. That's as simple as that. But while I do still claim or maintain that this is a schedule of champions, there's a point where okay, this is getting a bit too much.
Yeah, I mean, how
But
many
yes,
games do we have? One, two, three, four, five, six, seven. 7 games
mm,
in the month of May, in
yeah,
4 weeks. So
yeah,
you're
yeah,
literally playing 2 games a week, average,
yeah.
at the highest level, where the stakes are so high that if you lose, that's it. Like your season, it's
Mhm.
kind of like whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
that's the
but
thing. That's
but
the
that
thing.
said, though, which brought me back to the point that I was, wanting to discuss. Like, let's assume that um, you know Barca lose. It's possible.
Hmm.
The possibility
It's
of
possible.
loss is
It's
there.
always possible. Yeah. Hmm.
It's does that mean the season is a wipeout? I would say the season is a grand success, even if we, I don't know, lose a couple of the trophies on the way and probably win just one or what have you. But I still think the season, and I
Mhm.
know the season deserves trophy. We have
Yeah,
discussed this, but strange things happen in football, and we may win everything or we may not win everything, and that's okay.
yeah,
But
yeah.
the season would still be a good one, wouldn't it?
Mhm. It would. I firmly believe so. I think trophies are just a bonus, like a cherry on top of this season. But yes, as you said, Dev, we've been so good that it would be a shame not to win anything. That's always there, and obviously Barca always want to win everything, not just something. They want to win everything all the time. That's what Barca are all about, because Barca are a titan of football, despite their recent problems in the years past, like in the last 10 years even. That said, let's assume. Okay, let's just assume. Okay, we go trophyless this season. I would be very, very interested to see the reaction of the fans, because we've been singing praise of Flick and the squad throughout the season.
Does it
Would
suddenly
that,
change
yeah,
overnight?
does the narrative change overnight if Barca go trophyless? I think that is a very interesting thing to discuss, because in my eyes it shouldn't, obviously shouldn't, because we are building for the future and this project has long term foundations. That
Oh
is
yeah,
the biggest thing this season has done, is it showed us that what this team can be. It showed us that this team can compete against anyone, but also that this team has a foundation that can last for years to come. And in theory, it can become only better over time. Now, obviously, development in football is not linear. Doesn't mean that progress is guaranteed. However, the indications are very much there. So I would say that absolutely right. You are right. The season would still be a success even without trophies. But we keep saying it. It would be a shame not to win
it'll be a
something. I
shame not
think,
to win one.
yeah,
Yeah. So
because
let's hope,
yeah,
let's hope, let's hope, let's hope magic happens, and we are all happy coolers at the end of the day. But let's move to the next topic, which is the game against Celta. Celta's never been easy. Celta is not
no.
going to be easy tonight, and a slip here can hugely affect the league standing. So I don't
Yeah.
think there's any margin of error against Celta, given how difficult they have been against us forever.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of dreading and expecting a Barry Aspas masterclass. Is he play? He's probably, yeah. He's not injured or anything, so he's gonna be there. He's gonna do what Barry
He's going
always
to be
does against
difficult.
Barca.
He's going to do his
Yeah,
things. So
no,
yeah.
I know. It's always gonna be like it's so funny, because there are these players, and I have massive respect for Barry Aspas, because he is a great player, and I've done reports on him in the past because I love him so much, but he does seem to raise his level against Barca. Most teams do. Most of these teams that live for these moments, they do raise their levels against Barcelona. That's a normal thing. It's just what happens against bigger teams. But he finds something in himself that usually doesn't always exist on a
You
consistent
have
basis. And
Aspas,
he,
you have Borja Iglesias, you have Marcus Alonso, you have
yeah, I
Martin
know.
Guerra. It's a good team. Like you can't
It is a
like
good team,
it's a
and I.
really good team. And
Mhm.
so here's a question though, Dom. Obviously, given the situation, we can't afford to lose.
Yeah.
We also have many important games coming up. So
Mhm.
from a positioning standpoint, how weird is this? Hector Ford in place of, let's say,
Kunde.
Cruz Kunde, right?
Mhm.
Let's assume Gavi for Frankie, rest him. Ferran for Rafinha, who really looks short completely the last two games. He hasn't, like, he's been struggling. So Ferran, and maybe Furman starts with almost subbing in now that he is ready, and then you somehow manage the game in that manner,
Mhm.
while also using Lamine sparingly. How weird would that be?
Oh, that would be very unexpected, I think, because I don't think we'll see Flick do much of rotation until the league is done and dusted, right? If Until we are actually officially champions or officially out of the race, but whichever happens first, we won't see much rotation. Now that said, rotation will be necessary, um, at a certain degree, right? So who can we
Who is
realistically
realistic? What
expect?
is realistic, Dom?
Yeah. What is a realistic expectation of rotation at this point? I think Rafinha, to your point, needs a break. I think he needs a break. Obviously, he is a player that makes things happen for us. That's a fundamental aspect of our tactics. So if you remove him, you remove a massive part of what makes Barca Barca. That being said, he needs a rest. He's been less effective and he's been still running a lot. And I think that's a bad combination overall. So I would say Rafinha, yes, he'll be rested. Koundé, no, I don't think Koundé will be rested just because we don't have anyone to rest him with. We have Ford, obviously, to your point, but
But he doesn't
Flick,
trust
yeah. I don't think Ford exists in
his
Flick's.
mind.
Yeah, in Flick's mind, he's there, but he's not really an option at all, rightfully or not rightfully. So I'm not going into that aspect. I'm just saying, according to what we've seen so far, I don't think Ford is a realistic option at this moment. Now, Lamine, I don't think he will rest more than one player in that front line. I think it's going to be one player that's going to get rested if it gets rested, and then we'll probably see rotation in the midfield. Now, Pedri's going to play because Pedri didn't play last game, not the full game last game, and then Olmo. I'm not sure if Olmo comes back immediately. I don't think he'll start. He might feature, but he won't start.
Yeah, subbed in. I don't think he
Yeah, he
starts.
probably
I
doesn't
don't think
start.
he
And
starts.
then Gavi for Frankie, possible, but then would that mean Fermin Lopez as a third midfielder? Then you have Pedri, Gavi, and Fermin. I can see that.
With an almost sub
With an almost
later,
sub, yeah.
just to get him ready for the Inter
Yeah,
game.
exactly. So with an almost sub and potentially Frankie sub if necessary. Now Celta, I would expect them to sit. They are a team that likes to generally play open football. They're not don't shy away from open football, but I think they will come with a deeper block. I think they will come with a 5-man backline. If you ask, if that would be my guess at this point. Now, if that team that we have just described with Koundé and Ferran on the left is Rafinha and then no Frankie, can that team break down a low block or a 5-man low block?
Hard,
That would be yeah. It's hard. It is hard.
hard.
It's very hard, especially because we don't have Balde either. We have Gerard Martin, who, as we keep saying, he has been good. Props to Gerard Martin. He's been very good.
It's good, and his rate of passing is good. So if you're using Gerard Martin, then it's the passing, and
Yeah.
somebody has to. Then the game has to adjust. He can't do the running that Balde does, but his passing is good. His picking up of players is good. His rate of pass is good. So then you have
Yeah.
to figure out how to break the block through something like that because
Mhm.
you're not getting Balde's run.
No, okay, no, and Balde can break these deep blocks just by running through them. That's something that no one else bar Frankie de Jong can do as well. And if we're predicting de Jong not to start, you don't have that. Pedri can do it. But Pedri has to do other things on top of it. Pedri needs to be more. I wouldn't use Pedri in such a way because then you take away from a lot of the other things that he does. Now, Lamine would obviously be critical in this, but Lamine has also been kind of hit and miss. It's very sketchy to say that because obviously we all love him and we don't like to say too many bad things about him, but he has been a bit off lately, and there might be
Yeah, maybe.
yeah,
Yeah, but who in his place?
no one does what
There's no.
yeah, no one does what he does. So you can't rotate Lamine without losing massive things that make Barca Barca. So I think if you rotate Lamine, Rafinha will play. If you rotate Rafinha, Lamine will probably play because you can't rotate both of them at the same time. I don't think that will happen. I don't think that happens. Now there have been shouts for Dani Olmo false 9, which would add a bit of a more central attacking proficiency and more wiggle room in the tight deep 5-man blocks. But is Olmo really going to start immediately after that injury? I don't see it happening. Right? I see him featuring, yes. Starting, no. So it will probably be Lewandowski and then Ferran off the left and Lamine on the right. Because
It's Lewandowski's 100th game for Barcelona with 99 goals. It's
so
insane. Like if he scores one goal,
yeah,
it's the 100 game, 100
yeah.
goals. We'll sooner or later have to have that legend conversation
Yeah,
about.
yeah, absolutely, and I think he might play for that reason only. I mean, we did talk about that, Dev, in the past, where we said, okay, maybe,
It's his
yeah,
legacy.
these things shouldn't like matter in the grand scheme of things. They don't, but players care about that, and coaches care about giving that to
Yeah, there's
players. Yeah,
absolutely,
yeah,
and they
yeah.
should absolutely they
Mhm,
should. I mean, what an achievement to come at his
mhm.
age, play 100 matches, score 100
Yeah, yeah,
goals, be the highest scorer in Champions League across, and he has done this so successfully across 3 different teams. So massive kudos to him,
massive, yeah,
and obviously that matters to somebody like him. But so okay, so that's Celta. We don't really know, but we talked about possible permutations and combinations in starting
yeah.
lineup. But even with that, Barca are going to find this hard against
They will.
them. It's never easy. It's never easy against Celta, and they will be waiting for this. They will be absolutely waiting for
Yeah.
this. Um, what are you going with in scores?
Within score, I don't think it'll be a cagey game. Now, many people are saying early games don't suit us. I agree
Yeah,
100%. And for some reason, that's always been the case with Barca lately. At least it's always the 3 o'clock or the 4 o'clock, whatever it is in Barca. Kickoff time is just we don't do well. Something happens, and yes, it's different. Now it's still a home game, right? It's a home game. We still
yeah, that's the one good
yeah
thing. But I don't have
yeah.
given up by now.
Which kind of adds to the factor of okay, Celtic are probably gonna sit deep because it's a home game for us. Now we have managed, despite the Dortmund blip and shaky performance, we have managed to rest some players and still progress. We have managed to retain our spot in the semifinals. So I think the moral or the motivational part of the team is still there. We're not slumped mentally. We're mentally still in it. I think we should be happy with what we've done. So I don't think there's a slump in that perspective. So I would expect still a Barca win. Now, if we unlock Celta early, I say we score 3 goals. If Celta are very stubborn and they hold on for a long time, then it can be a cagey 1-0 game or something like that. But I would say 3-0 Barca. I say 3-0 Barca.
They are friend laws. All right, so that's Celta, and we will obviously be right there after the game, win or
Yeah.
lose. Hope we win, because otherwise the mood will be
Mhm.
terrible. But we'll be there covering
Will
the
be,
game after
yeah.
that. So do join us, and we'll take that on. So let's move on from Celta. We covered Dortmund, we covered Inter, we covered Celta. So we were talking about how Flick has this unique way of letting the players
Yeah.
decide when they want a rotation or a
Yeah.
rest. He doesn't impose himself. He just
Yeah.
goes with the collective.
Yeah, there is some merit to that, I guess. I mean, he talked about how he always asks the the players and says, "Okay, how do you feel? Do you feel fit and ready and the rest of the play?" And the players say, "Yeah, yeah, sure, I'll play, coach." He lets them play. Now, obviously, I like that there's freedom of choice. I like that he's actually giving them agency. But with some players, they're always going to say yes, they want to play. I think Lamine is one of them. I think this exactly. We've
Oh,
been pondering this question for a long time. Where we say like we don't know why is Lamine playing so much, and this might be the answer to that because Lamine wants to play so much. Obviously, he's young, he's very eager, he wants to prove himself. He's the star of the team. He always wants to be there, and then whenever Flick potentially asks him, "Okay, Lamine, how do you feel?" He's like, "Oh, great, coach. I want to play." But that's not always the right thing to do. So I think Flick, in some cases, should just stamp his authority and say, "Okay, no. I mean, you are great, and you'll be a star for the years to come, hopefully. But not if you keep doing this, because there's chance of you breaking because of this." So I think in some cases, Flick should just be the coach and be this very harsh and strict coach that we know he is or can be, and just say, "No, you're getting a rest, I mean, or Kunde or whoever it is," and that's it. That's the end of the story. Especially with these young players, they need to be made aware of that. Okay, you might have ego, which is good for a footballer to be a star player, but the coach is the coach, and the coach makes the decision. So if you're not Lionel Messi, and no one is, right? You're not getting what you want all the time. So yeah, so
yeah, yeah.
especially if you're 17. I don't care if you're Lamine Yamal. You're 17. If the coach tells you to sit down, you'll sit down. I think that's. It might sound harsh, and people will be like, "Oh, Tom, what are you saying?" But I still believe that should be the way.
But it's true.
Yeah,
It's true. It is absolutely true. He hasn't really. I mean, he's
yeah,
amazing, of
yeah.
course, but for his own good, he should
Hmm.
probably,
Hmm.
yeah, just take it a little bit easy for a while. But that said, Barca don't really have a player of his
That's
mold or
true.
his caliber,
Hmm.
so obviously they also have needed him massively, and it's been one of those things where the demand has justified the utility or the
Hmm.
usage. And so on.
Hmm.
So I think that's basically what it is. But yeah, I mean, Flick apparently has that philosophy where he lets the team decide whether they want to rotate.
Yeah.
So you might have seen, a few games back, Lamine asking for rotation so that Ansu can play. So it's apparently a player
Hmm.
thing. Players decide depending on how they feel, good, bad, or somebody else needs to play. they can they
Hmm.
can they can just say so. But then I think, I mean, there must be some sort of adjustment. I mean, I can't expect a Ferran not saying that I don't want to play.
Yeah, I know.
And surely want to play, but he hardly ever starts
Yeah,
games,
yeah,
right? So I think there is a bit that we need to keep in mind from that perspective. But yeah, I mean, just shows one more side of Flick's
yeah.
man management, which has been praised quite a
Has
bit,
been.
and obviously has had a huge impact in how the team is performing this season. Because honestly, let's be honest, like um, it's the same team that Xavi had
Yeah,
last season, mostly
yeah,
with a few changes here and there. But the change in performance is like night and day. So obviously, there's something that is
yeah.
working, which wasn't working, last season. So yeah, that's about Flick. Anything else, Dom, before we wrap this up?
We can touch upon now. We don't often talk about other clubs, but I think it is quite an interesting topic of Jurgen Klopp at Real Madrid. Now,
Yeah, that'll be
it's
amazing.
yeah, I know, yeah. Now it's so amazing for Barca, maybe, but yeah, amazing for them, amazing for neutral football fans in general. And I think it's inevitable that Ancelotti is going to get a sack. I think it's just a matter of time, and even I think Madrid fans themselves are calling for that to happen sooner rather than later. So they will get a new coach, and I think it will be
Yep.
a much needed change for Madrid, and I think it will put Madrid back on track. Now, which coach that
Yeah.
is? Is it Nagelsmann? Is it Klopp? We don't know yet.
Quite a few.
Mhm.
There's Zidane,
Yeah, I
obviously,
mean, yeah, always.
always. There is now Jurgen
Hmm.
Klopp,
Hmm.
apparently. There's Xavi Alonso, and then there is
Yeah,
Nagelsmann. But I don't think Nagelsmann, I think, is kind of settled down with the
yeah,
German team, so
yeah.
it's okay. But those three still are very
They
much,
are.
quite much are there. I mean, Xavi Alonso, great history with the club.
Hmm.
Zidane, great history with the club. And Jurgen Klopp obviously is an interesting choice because he will be seen as a perfect antidote for this Barca Flick
Hmm.
combination to really, go against that.
Yeah, it will be it'll be fight fire with fire if Jurgen Klopp is appointed, because we know what he's like. When you think of heavy metal football, you think of Klopp and Flick as well, because they are very similar in that regard. Yeah, very
Sure.
similar in that regard. Obviously, not the same coaches, and we can go deeper into that if it happens. However, yes, I think Klopp is obviously a great coach, and Klopp is more of a coach that will drill things into the players as opposed to Ancelotti, who's like, oh yeah, let them play and stuff like that. Now, obviously, as a Barca fan, you were like, okay, we don't really want them to get great coaches. We like them to be, a peg behind us, under us, if whenever possible.
Well, you can't
If-
stop that. This is going to
Yes,
happen.
yes. I think once Ancelotti gets the sack, you have to expect a coach of a higher caliber, or at least a different
I mean,
profile, to come in, because Madrid are still going to attract those names, and Madrid are always going to be a very attractive destination for players and coaches. We cannot stop that, right? We as Barca fans can make that less of an attractive option to compared to Barca. That's all we can do, but they will always be there. Same as Barca will probably always be there, right? No, it's still throughout our slump, we still attracted players. We still made people talk. We still made people,
yeah, these are big
yeah,
clubs. Big clubs will always
yeah,
be big clubs. Arsenal, Liverpool, Manchester
yeah,
United, Barca,
yeah.
Inter. These are big
They are.
clubs. They'll
They
always
are.
be big clubs.
So I think it will bump the overall quality of the league as well, which is always a good thing, because La Liga has a reputation of being okay, just a two-horse race, whatnot, not attracting the top tier coaches the way I know the Premier League does, for example. But I think it'll be good for us as well to have Madrid at their best, because Madrid always make Barca better by being a good team, being an elite team, because they do push Barca to.
They
Yeah,
push.
exactly. And I think without Barca, you don't have Madrid of this magnitude. The same is true vice versa. You don't have a Barca who's at the top of their game if Madrid are faltering as well. They keep pushing each other to new heights. So from that perspective, I think there's still merit to Jurgen Klopp, for example, taking over Madrid. Obviously, it would make our charge for La Liga, for Europe, for whatever it is, much more difficult. Obviously, so
Much more
yeah,
difficult. It's a
yeah,
top coach. It's
yeah,
a top coach. But here's the thing about, and this is the final point before we wrap this up, Dom. But what does it say about the evolution of football? Now, we watched
yeah.
Pep and a slew of Spanish coaches make their way to the Premier League
Hmm.
because obviously the Premier the money and the whatever else. And we saw how the English game
Yeah,
evolved
yeah.
massively. It's not the same game that was being played in England 10 years ago. It's a totally different game. And it's purely because of these coaches who have made their way from
Yeah.
Spain to England, created that fusion. And now you have the whole of
Mhm.
England and the team, the national team, that the players were coming up, the system, the academies, everything's evolving because of
Mhm.
that, right? And now you'll have, let's assume that happens, you have two very strong German coaches from the German school of
Yeah,
thinking, of gegenpressing, what have you, of the Ralph Rangnicks, and so on and so forth. And they're coming, and they are at the
yeah,
pinnacle of Spanish football, which has its root in technicality, and they're infusing that part of the game with what Spain has had, and that's going to evolve the game a lot
yeah.
more. And it's fascinating how this changes, and what a discourse it would be.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, football is cyclical. It always has been, always will be. So tactics will come and go, and they will also always repeat themselves over time. Now, it's also interesting how in Champions League, for example, in the Final Four, you have distinct styles, different styles of coaching, right? You have, on one hand, you have the PSG and Barca, who are the heavy attacking sides, who press very high, who are very aggressive on and off the ball. And then you have Arsenal and Inter, who are more like, okay, we have this deep block defending, we have our own mechanisms. So we have different coaches, different specialists in different things. And they're all in the Final Four through their own merit, different styles. So I think it shows you that there's no right or wrong. There's always going to be the right blueprint for the team that you have. Now, if Jurgen Klopp comes to Real Madrid and his style fits with the players that he has, or he gets the players that he needs, obviously it's going to work, right? No matter if the Spanish league demands one or the other thing, it's always going to be which blueprint fits your players, your team the most. And I think, to your point, it is very interesting that a technical league like Spain will have two top teams having styles that maybe might be a bit of a departure from the usual stereotypical way of playing. But then again, most La Liga teams are, I don't know, they like deep defending. They like to be stubborn in the block. They like to be very combative in those blocks. And yes, they have a technical floor that's high, but they're not all Barca and Real Madrid, right? They're far from that, right? Other teams in the league are much, they are different than the two top teams, I think, from that perspective. So it's always interesting to look at that and see, okay, how does that differ from the Barca and Madrid and whatnot. So yes, it'll be an interesting change potentially, because then you have much less of the tiki taka, so called, and much more of, yeah, heavy metal stuff, which is not bad.
Huh?
Yeah.
It'll be good. It'll be good. It'll be good. Football keeps changing, and we'll have something new to talk about all the time. So yeah,
Mhm.
I still hope he doesn't come to
Yeah,
Real Madrid,
yeah,
but if
yeah.
he does, he does. It'll be fun, and we'll see what happens. Anyway, final point of topic. What are you guys' thoughts on the discussion regarding Suarez's subpar UCL? Well, I think by the time Suarez was, those years were bad overall in the UCL for Barca, except for 2014-15.
Yeah.
We didn't really have a run in any of the UCLs. The team was deteriorating. We had players. There were political issues. There were many things that were wrong, and that came on the field. So instead of blaming just one person, and Suarez was getting old. He also put on weight. What have you? Many things happened. So um, you need to have the entire environment working in your favor to deliver in that manner. I don't think it was there at that time, honestly. So it's just one of those things. But on his heyday, in his pomp, Suarez, I would take him as a striker any day. He's an incredible player. And he'll forever be a legend for Barca, irrespective of how many UCL goals he has scored or not. But that's it. Uh, See you guys on the other side. We will obviously be back after the Celta game. So if you guys wish to join us, please join us, and we will talk about hopefully a win. And then we're off, and we'll be back again for the
Yep.
Inter. So till then, stay safe, take care, enjoy your weekend, and
Vice
discount.
versa.